2 months before the wedding, the woman I trusted with my future sat down and asked permission to explore her feelings for a colleague. So, I ended things and let them be together. Guess who reappeared after 8 months? My fiancée wanted to test her feelings for a colleague before marrying me. I gave her something better, a permanent break from that relationship. Plot twist, he had a fiancée too. Read the whole thing, it's delicious. I'm Nate, 29 male. I work in aviation safety certification and flight software compliance, basically making sure the systems that keep planes from falling out of the sky meet federal standards. I spend half my life in hangars, airport offices, and regional terminals across the Midwest. The other half I spend on I-70, or sitting in MCI waiting for delayed flights. It pays well, and I'm good at it. I was engaged to Katya for 14 months, together for almost 3 years total. She's originally from Ukraine, came to the States for grad school, and stayed. Met her at a friend's birthday party at this rooftop bar in the Crossroads district. She was stunning, like stop mid-sentence stunning. Dark hair, sharp features, dressed like she just stepped out of a European fashion magazine. Way out of my league, or so I thought at the time. But she seemed genuinely interested. We talked for 2 hours about everything. Her transition to American life, my weird job that nobody understands, the best barbecue spots in Kansas City. She had this way of giving you her full attention, like nothing else in the room mattered. I was hooked immediately. The first year was incredible. She introduced me to her world, these elaborate dinner parties with her friends, where everyone dressed up and the food was always homemade and impressive. I introduced her to Chiefs games and hole-in-the-wall barbecue joints that she pretended to enjoy more than she probably did. We balanced each other out. Looking back, I was probably more accommodating than I should have been. She had strong opinions about everything. Where we ate, what we did on weekends, how I dressed when we went out. I went along with most of it because it seemed easier, and honestly, I wanted her to be happy. My best friend Cody called me whipped more than once. I told him he was just jealous. He told me I was just blind, but I wasn't a complete pushover. When she wanted me to skip my cousin's wedding because her coworker was having a gallery opening the same night, I said no. When she suggested I should find a job that didn't require so much travel because she didn't like being alone, I told her my career wasn't negotiable. I had a backbone. I just didn't use it as often as I should have. The engagement happened 14 months ago at her favorite restaurant on the plaza. I'd planned it for weeks, coordinated with the staff, had the ring hidden in my jacket pocket all through dinner. The ring itself was my grandmother's, a vintage piece with a center diamond and 2 smaller sapphires. I'd had it reset in a more modern band because Katya had specific taste, and my grandmother's original setting wasn't going to cut it. When I got down on one knee, she actually teared up, said yes before I finished the question, posted it on Instagram within 30 seconds. The picture got 400 likes in an hour. She changed her profile bio to future Mrs. before we'd even gotten the check. Her parents flew in from Chicago the following month to celebrate. Her mom brought traditional Ukrainian pastries she'd spent 2 days making. Her dad brought his handshake and his expectations. Her dad Victor was this old-school Eastern European guy who shook my hand like he was testing my grip strength. Her mom, Irina, was warmer, but clearly had high standards for whoever was marrying her daughter. I passed inspection apparently. Victor told me privately that he was glad Katya had found someone stable, someone who would take care of her. I took that responsibility seriously, maybe too seriously. We found an apartment together in a nice building near the plaza. Split rent 60/40. Since I made more. Started planning the wedding for early June. Her parents offered to contribute toward the costs, which was generous considering the budget kept creeping upward. Katya had a vision. The venue had to be perfect. The flowers had to be specific. The guest list kept expanding, because she couldn't possibly exclude anyone from her social circle. By the time we locked everything in, we were looking at 140 guests, a venue in Parkville with a river view, a 6-piece band, and a photographer who'd shot weddings for Kansas City Chiefs players. Total budget had ballooned to $62,000. Her parents were contributing $20,000. I was covering the rest. Every vendor had deposits down. Save the dates were on refrigerators across 3 states. I went along with all of it, wrote checks, nodded at fabric samples, pretended to care about the difference between ivory and eggshell, because that's what you do when you're building a life with someone. You compromise. What I didn't realize was that I was the only one compromising. 2 months before the wedding, everything was locked in. Venue booked, caterer confirmed, photographer scheduled, save the date sent. Her dress was being altered. My suit was ordered. We were on the countdown. And then Tuesday happened. I just gotten back from a 3-day trip to Wichita certifying some avionics upgrades for a regional carrier. Long days in a stuffy hangar, reviewing documentation, running tests, dealing with mechanics who thought compliance was a suggestion. I was tired, but it was a good tired. The kind that comes from doing your job well. Katya was sitting at our kitchen table when I walked in. She had this look on her face I'd never seen before, serious, but also almost rehearsed. She told me she needed to talk to me about something important, about us, about the wedding. I sat down across from her, still in my work clothes, assuming this was going to be about seating arrangements or some vendor drama. I've been doing a lot of thinking lately, she said. About commitment. About being sure. I think we should take a break before the wedding. I asked what kind of break she meant. That's when she told me about Dimitri, a guy from her office, some project manager she'd been working closely with on a big campaign. She said they'd developed a connection, an emotional connection, and she thought before she walked down the aisle, she should explore those feelings, just to be completely sure she was making the right choice. I sat there processing this. My fiancée 2 months before our wedding was asking permission to pursue another man, a coworker, someone she saw every single day while I was traveling for work. I asked her how long this had been going on. She got defensive, said nothing had happened, they'd just been talking, getting close. She said he understood her in ways that were different, that he was there when I was always gone. The accusation landed exactly where she wanted it to. Like I was somehow responsible for her developing feelings for another guy because my job required travel. So, what exactly am I supposed to do during this exploration period? Wait for me. Give me space to figure out my feelings. She said it like she was asking me to pick up milk on the way home. If you really love me, you'd want me to be certain. You'd want me to come to our marriage without any doubts. She'd clearly rehearsed this whole thing, had her talking points ready, probably got advice from whatever friend told her this was a reasonable request. But, here's where she miscalculated. She assumed I'd react the way I always did. Accommodate, compromise, put her needs first. Instead, I stood up. No break, no exploration, no waiting around while you figure out if some other guy is a better option. We're either getting married or we're not. And if you need to explore feelings for a coworker, then we're not. Her face changed instantly. That rehearsed calm she'd been keeping up just broke. I'm not asking to break up, Nate. I'm asking for space, time to process. Don't you understand the difference? I understand perfectly. You want to keep me on the hook while you test drive someone else. That's not space. That's treating me like a backup plan. I looked her dead in the eyes, and I don't do backup plans. She started getting emotional, said I was being unreasonable, that she was trying to be honest with me instead of just cheating behind my back. That most guys would appreciate that kind of transparency. I told her most guys would have walked out 30 seconds into this conversation. I was just slower to catch up. Then I asked for the ring back. Her whole attitude changed. The tears stopped. Her eyes went cold. You're serious right now? I've never been more serious about anything. It was a gift, Nate. You can't just demand it back because you're upset. The engagement is over. That means the ring comes back. That's how it works. We went back and forth for another 10 minutes. She tried guilt, then anger, then bargaining. I didn't budge. Finally, she pulled the ring off and threw it at my chest. I caught it clean, right out of the air. She grabbed her purse and headed for the door. Before she left, she turned around, eyes blazing. You will never find someone as beautiful as me. No one is going to love you the way I did. You're making the biggest mistake of your life. Then she slammed the door so hard the pictures on the wall rattled. I stood there in our apartment, holding my grandmother's ring. And the weird thing was, I didn't feel sad. I felt relieved, like I'd been waiting for the other shoe to drop for months, and it finally did. Then I texted Cody. His response came back in under a minute. Finally, bro. Took you long enough to grow a pair. Want hot wings? I'm on my way. Cody showed up 45 minutes later with a bag of wings from our usual spot, a notebook, and this grin on his face like Christmas came early. He'd never liked Katia. Said she treated me like an accessory. Said she was more interested in having a fiancé than having me specifically. I always defended her, told him he didn't understand her, told him he was being unfair. Turns out he understood her better than I did. He dropped the wings on the table, cracked open a can of energy drink, and pointed at me. Walk me through everything. Start to finish. Don't leave anything out. I walked him through the whole conversation. He listened without interrupting, which was rare for him. When I finished, he just shook his head. Honestly, I'm surprised it took this long. A woman who posts your engagement ring before she even calls her mom isn't in love with you, bro. She's in love with the announcement. He had a point. Then he pulled out the notebook and uncapped a pen. We're approaching this like a project. Deliverables, timelines, dependencies. You're serious right now? Dead serious. Most guys fumble breakups because they react emotionally instead of strategically. We're making sure you're not fumbling the bag. Wait, what? Shut up and listen, Nate. Within 20 minutes, he'd mapped out everything I needed to handle. The apartment lease, the wedding vendors, the joint accounts, the shared subscriptions, the narrative control. He'd even assigned priorities. High impact, low effort stuff first. The subscriptions. I hadn't even thought about that. Katia and I had combined basically everything over the past 2 years. Streaming services, grocery delivery, cloud storage, music, fitness apps, meal planning services. All under my accounts, all with my payment info. She used them constantly. Her entire digital life ran on infrastructure I was paying for. Cody circled that section of his list 3 times. This right here. This is the petty satisfaction column. Not necessary for the breakup, but important for morale. He grinned. My morale specifically. I told him I didn't want to be petty. It's not petty, it's practical. Why should you pay for services for someone who just asked to explore another guy? He leaned back. Besides, watching her get logged out of everything one by one is going to be special. He had a point there too. But first, I had a more important message to send. I knew Katia. Knew how she operated. The second she calmed down, she'd start working on the narrative. Calling friends, texting family, framing this as me overreacting to a reasonable request. By morning, I'd be the villain who abandoned her over a simple conversation about feelings. I needed to get ahead of that. I typed out one text message. Kept it short, factual, no emotion. Katya asked me tonight to take a break from our engagement, so she could explore her feelings for a coworker named Dimitri. I declined and ended the engagement. The wedding is cancelled. I wanted you to hear this from me directly. I sent it to her parents, her sister, and 3 of our mutual friends who I knew would spread it further. Then I turned off my phone and finished my wings. Cody called this the narrative lock. Said in any breakup, whoever controls the story controls the outcome. I just made it impossible for her to rewrite what happened without looking like she was lying about her own family receiving that text. By the next morning, the text had done its job. Her sister had screenshotted it to their family group chat. 2 of the mutual friends had already told their entire friend circles. One guy I'd sent it to worked with Katya at her agency, and by lunch, her whole office knew. Not from gossip, from the actual facts sent by me before she could spin anything. She tried anyway. Told people I'd overreacted to a simple conversation about pre-wedding nerves. But when people asked follow-up questions, her story fell apart. The details didn't match. The timeline didn't work. And everyone had already seen my text with the name Dimitri in it. Next, I called Victor, her dad. I'd always respected him, and I figured he deserved a real conversation, not just a text. He answered on the second ring, his voice heavy. He'd clearly already read the message. Is it true, Nate, what you wrote? Every word, Victor. He went quiet for a long moment, and I could hear him breathing on the other end. Then he asked what I needed from him regarding the wedding costs. I told him I'd handle canceling everything, and we could split whatever deposits were non-refundable. He'd contributed around $20,000 toward the venue, catering, and other vendors. I offered to cover the losses myself since I was the one ending it. No, his voice was firm. My daughter made this mess. I'm not letting you pay for her mistakes. In my family, when someone breaks their word, they bear the consequences, not the person who is wronged. Then he said something that stuck with me. He said he'd raised Katya to know better than this, that he'd tried to teach her that trust was something you build, not something you throw away for excitement. He said he didn't know where he went wrong, but he was ashamed of what she'd done. I told him it wasn't his fault. People make their own choices. That's generous of you, more than she deserves. I could hear Irina in the background upset asking what was happening. Victor told her they'd talk about it after he finished with me. Before he hung up, his voice softened. I hoped you would be part of this family, Nate. You're a good man. My daughter is a fool. That hit harder than I expected. Coming from an old-school Ukrainian father who probably wasn't easy to impress, it meant something. Wednesday morning, I started making calls. The venue coordinator was understanding but firm about the cancellation policy. We'd lose about $8,000 total between their deposit and the caterers. Victor handled that call himself. Insisted on it. The photographer refunded most of my deposit since she was able to rebook the date quickly. Said she was sorry things didn't work out, but she'd seen enough to know that calling it off now saved everyone more pain later. The florist kept $1,500. The DJ kept $500. The band was the biggest hit after the venue, $3,000, non-refundable, no exception. I called the rental company for the tables and chairs, the bakery, the calligrapher who'd done the invitations, the hotel where we'd blocked rooms for out-of-town guests. By noon, I'd made 14 calls and watched about $13,000 go up in smoke on a wedding that wasn't happening. By Wednesday afternoon, the wedding website was gone. I'd built it on a platform under my email, so I just deleted the whole thing. The registry disappeared with it, all those carefully selected kitchen items and fancy linens, gone. The visual proof of our upcoming marriage. Erased. Cody had suggested this specifically. Said for someone like Katya, the public-facing stuff would hurt more than anything private. Her whole identity was wrapped up in how things looked to other people. Remove the optics, remove her power. He wasn't wrong. She started blowing up my phone around 4 o'clock that afternoon. Texts, calls, voicemails. She'd apparently gone to show a friend the registry and found nothing. Then checked the wedding website, nothing. Then called the venue and found out her own father had canceled everything. Her messages got increasingly frantic, then angry, then threatening. She said I was trying to humiliate her, that I'd gone behind her back to her own family, that I was being vindictive and cruel. I didn't respond to any of it. That evening, I logged into all our shared accounts. Streaming services first, changed the password on the main one, removed her profile, moved to the next platform, same process. Cloud storage, grocery delivery, music, fitness app, meal planning service, language learning app she'd used exactly twice. Everything. Cody was sitting across from me, watching and grinning. He'd brought snacks. Looked like the Michael Jackson gif. "This is better than any show we could have been watching on those streaming services," he said, stuffing chips in his mouth. I know it was petty, but Cody was right. Why should I keep paying for someone who just tried to put me on a shelf while she shopped around? The texts that came after that were something else. Apparently she'd been in the middle of a show when everything logged her out, then tried to order groceries and got declined. Then couldn't access the playlist she'd been curating for months, then tried to use the cloud storage where she kept all her design files for work and got a password error. The messages progressed through several stages. Confusion first, then realization, then anger. She even sent me angry voicemails. Her accent was slipping. "You cancel everything? Everything? I am in middle of show, Nate. You are so petty, so childish. I cannot believe I wasted 3 years on you. TV shows? During? You think this hurts me? This is nothing. You are nothing. Mudak." Cody died laughing when he heard this. Bro. She's having an existential crisis. She tried to sign up for her own accounts, but apparently some of the premium features I'd been paying for weren't available on the basic plans. She sent another round of messages asking if I was seriously going to make her pay full price for services she'd been using for free for 2 years. I didn't respond to any of it. "That's the best part," Cody said. The silence. "Nothing's going to drive her crazier than you not engaging at all." I slept better that night than I had in months. The apartment situation was the big one. We were both on the lease, which ran through October. Breaking it early would mean penalties, and I didn't want to deal with months of awkward cohabitation while she figured out her next move. Plus, there was the issue of her trying to make my life difficult. Apparently, after the subscription shutdown, she decided to fight back. She called my company's HR department claiming I'd been harassing her, said she felt unsafe, demanded they do something about it. Except there was nothing to do something about. I hadn't contacted her directly since the lease meeting. Every message she'd sent had gone unanswered. The text I'd sent to her family was factual and contained no threats or insults. HR called me. I forwarded them the relevant screenshots showing she'd been the one sending aggressive messages. And they closed the case in about 20 minutes. Then, she tried calling the apartment management to get me removed from the lease for creating a hostile living environment. Except I wasn't living there. I was staying with Cody temporarily while I figured out the move. And the building manager, who'd seen enough breakup drama to write a book about it, wasn't interested in getting involved in our situation beyond the paperwork. She also tried to get ahead of me with the wedding vendors. Called the venue pretending to be handling the cancellation herself, trying to redirect my deposit refunds to her account. The venue coordinator called me to verify. When I explained the situation, she flagged Kadia's number in their system. The caterer got a similar call, same result. Her attempts to get back at me weren't working because there was nothing to get back at. I wasn't engaging. I wasn't attacking, and she had no idea how to fight that. Thursday morning, I went to the leasing office and explained the situation. The manager was sympathetic. She said if one of us wanted to take over the lease solo, that could work. Or if we both wanted out, there'd be a 2-month penalty. I asked about my options specifically. She said if I could find a replacement tenant and Kadia agreed to sign off the lease, I could be out within 30 days. I made some calls. A guy from my company had been looking for a place closer to downtown. I told him about the apartment, sent pictures, and quoted him the rent. By Thursday afternoon, he wanted it. Said he could move in by the 15th if the paperwork worked out. Now, I just needed Kadia to cooperate. I texted her a simple proposal. I'd move out. She could stay in the apartment through the end of the lease, and I'd cover my share of the penalty for breaking it early. Clean break. No drama. Everyone moves on. She called me instead of texting back. Her voice was different now, calmer. "I don't want you to move out, Nate. I want to talk about this. Really talk." A pause. I was hasty. I was Dimitri isn't what I thought. I made a mistake raising it the way I did. That's not changing. You can either agree to the lease terms, or we're both stuck in an awkward situation until October. She got quiet, then asked where I was planning to go. Austin. My company's had a position open there for months. Regional manager for the Southwest Territory. More money, better weather, fresh start. I already talked to my boss. The job's mine if I want it. Silence on the other end. I think she'd assumed I'd stick around. Finding out I was leaving the state entirely wasn't part of her plan. She agreed to sign the lease paperwork the next day. Friday morning, we met at the leasing office. She looked like she'd been crying, but I could tell some of it was performance. We sat across from each other signing documents, barely making eye contact. Before she left, she tried one more time. Can we just slow down? Maybe you're making this bigger than it needs to be. She looked at me with those eyes that used to work on me. I never actually did anything with Dimitri. It was just feelings. Feelings I could work through. The fact that you could even ask for what you asked tells me everything I need to know. I held her gaze. Someone who wants to marry me doesn't need to explore other options first. That's not how it works. She opened her mouth to argue, then closed it. Something in my voice must have made it clear there was no angle left to play. She walked out without another word. Saturday morning, Cody showed up with his truck. We spent 8 hours packing and loading everything I was taking with me. The apartment was mostly furnished when we moved in, so there wasn't much to fight over. My clothes, my gaming setup, personal stuff, some kitchen equipment I'd bought myself. Everything else stayed. By Saturday evening, my half of the apartment was empty. I left the keys on the counter with a note that said nothing more than good luck. Cody thought that was too nice. He'd wanted me to leave a printed screenshot of her asking for the break, but I was done. I didn't need the last word. I just needed to be gone. Sunday morning, I was on I-35 heading south toward Austin. 12 hours of empty highway and podcast episodes about aviation history. Passed through Oklahoma City around lunch. Stopped for gas in Dallas around dinner. Texas plates started outnumbering everything else. I crossed into Austin city limits just after 9 o'clock p.m. The skyline lit up against the dark. New city, new job, new life. I didn't look back once. The first few weeks in Austin were a blur of logistics. Finding an apartment, setting up utilities, getting oriented at the new office. My territory covered Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, and parts of Colorado. Lots of regional carriers. Lots of small airports. Lots of flight time. The Austin office was different. More relaxed. More collaborative. Less of the corporate politics I'd gotten used to navigating. My boss, a former Air Force guy named Paul, was more interested in results than appearances. He didn't care how many hours I logged or how many meetings I attended. He cared about whether operators passed their certification and whether clients were happy. The first month I spent more time in the air and in hangars than I did at my desk. El Paso 1 week for a comprehensive documentation review, Phoenix the next week for software certification testing, then driving to some tiny airport in the hill country where a charter company needed compliance consulting because their previous specialist had botched something and they were facing fines. Every successful certification was another win. Every new client felt like proof I'd made the right call. The work itself hadn't changed, but my head was in a better place. I wasn't just clocking in anymore, I was actually invested. The work kept me busy, which was exactly what I needed. Cody kept me updated on the KC situation. He'd maintained connections with some mutual friends who were happy to share information. And man, it was a mess. Katya had tried to spin the narrative for about 48 hours before giving up. My text to her family had made that impossible. Her own father was telling people she'd asked for a break to pursue a coworker. Her own sister was saying she couldn't believe Katya would throw away what she had. The story was out, and it wasn't flattering. She'd apparently doubled down on Dimitri after I left. Figured if she'd lost me over him, she might as well see what was actually there. They started dating officially about 2 weeks after I moved. Cody sent me updates like a sportscaster. Week 1, they were inseparable, eating lunch together in the office every day. Week 3, she was posting couple pictures with captions about finding her person. Week 5, she introduced him to friends as her boyfriend. It was moving fast, which made sense. She needed to prove the whole thing was worth it. Then week 8 happened. Dimitri had a fiancée, not an ex-fiancée, a current fiancée. A woman in Chicago who he'd been engaged to for over a year. Katya was a side piece. The emotional connection, the late nights at the office, the understanding that she felt was so special and different from what she had with me. All of it was just entertainment for a guy who was bored with his actual relationship and saw an easy target. She found out when the fiancé found her Instagram. Apparently, some photo Katya posted had location data that didn't match Dimitri's supposed work trip. The fiancé did some digging, found Katya's profile, connected the dots, and discovered a whole relationship her future husband had been hiding. The confrontation happened publicly. Comments on Katya's photos calling her out. Messages to mutual friends explaining the situation. Screenshots shared across multiple platforms. The fiancé had receipts, text messages between Dimitri and Katya, a restaurant reservation he'd made under a fake name, hotel charges on a credit card statement. She posted everything. Everyone in Katya's social circle found out simultaneously that she'd left her fiancé for a guy who was playing her the entire time. To make it worse, Dimitri didn't even try to defend her. When confronted, he threw Katya under the bus completely, told his fiancé that Katya had pursued him aggressively, and he'd just been too nice to shut it down. Said she'd misread professional friendliness as romantic interest. Basically made her look desperate and delusional. His fiancée didn't buy it entirely, but she wanted to believe it. They went to couples counseling, started posting photos together again within a month. He kept his relationship, his reputation, his comfortable life. Katya got nothing but public humiliation and a lesson in being someone's side piece. Cody called me the night it all went down, laughing so hard he could barely breathe. Said he'd never seen karma work that fast. I didn't feel happy about it exactly, more like satisfied. Like the choice I'd made was the right one, and now there was proof. Katya went quiet on social media after that. No more posts, no more stories, no more carefully filtered photos of her perfect life. The image she'd spent years building was toast, and everyone knew it. Her agency let her go 3 weeks later. Officially, it was a restructuring. Unofficially, one of her coworkers told Cody that clients had started asking to work with different designers. Nobody wanted their brand associated with the woman whose messy personal life had just played out across Instagram. In the creative industry, reputation is everything. Hers was gone. Meanwhile, I was thriving. Hit my sales targets for the first quarter. Got positive feedback from 3 different clients about my certification work. Started building a routine in Austin. Gym in the morning, work during the day, exploring the city on weekends. I found a great apartment near downtown with a view of Lady Bird Lake. Started hiking the trails on weekends, joined a recreational volleyball league through work, made friends with some guys from the office who were also transplants from other cities. For the first time in years, I felt like I was actually living my own life, not constantly adjusting to what someone else wanted, just doing my thing. Honestly, it was great. 6 months after moving to Austin, I was doing better than I'd been in years. More settled, more confident, more like myself. The job had turned out even better than expected. My territory was expanding, my numbers were solid, and my boss was already talking about a promotion to director level within the next year. I'd started dating casually around month 4. Nothing serious, just getting back out there. Then I met Rebecca. She was a sales engineer for a different aviation company. We met at a conference in Dallas. Ended up at the same dinner table with a group of people. Spent the whole meal talking to each other and ignoring everyone else. She was smart, direct, and had this dry sense of humor that caught me off guard constantly. Our first actual date was at this taco place she swore had the best al pastor in Texas. She was right. We talked for 3 hours and it felt easy in a way my relationship with Katya never was. She knew my story, the abbreviated version at least. She didn't push for details, just said it sounded like I'd handled it the right way and changed the subject. With Rebecca, I just existed. She liked me for who I actually was. When I came home exhausted and wanted to just order pizza and watch something mindless, she was into it. When I wanted to spend a Saturday hiking instead of at a trendy brunch place, she grabbed her boots. Cody met her when he came down to visit. His verdict? She was a keeper. Said she was the first girlfriend of mine who actually seemed interested in me rather than in having a boyfriend. Through the grapevine back in Kansas, I kept hearing bits about Katya's life. She'd moved back to KC after staying with her parents in Chicago for a while. Her design career had stalled because the whole drama had played out in front of her professional network. Victor and I had stayed loosely in touch. He'd text me occasionally, send news about the Chiefs, or ask how the job was going. Never mentioned his daughter directly, but the subtext was always there. 8 months after the breakup, this happened. My company sent me back to Kansas for a week. Big client meeting, regulatory review, the kind of thing that required my specific expertise. I'd be in town for 5 days. I wasn't worried about running into Katya. I knew she'd moved back to Kansas City from Chicago, but it's a big place. The odds of randomly crossing paths were basically zero. The work went smoothly. 4 days of meetings, inspections, and documentation review. By Thursday evening, I was finished and had one free night before my flight home Friday afternoon. Cody insisted on meeting up, suggested this new place in the Crossroads district that had opened after I left. Supposed to have great food. I agreed. The restaurant was packed when I got there. Cody had grabbed a table near the back, already had an appetizer ordered. We spent the first hour catching up properly. His work, my work, Rebecca, his latest dating disasters. Normal stuff. Then I saw her. Katya was across the restaurant with 2 women I didn't recognize. She was dressed up, full makeup, the whole presentation, but something was off. That confidence she used to have looked forced now, like she was trying too hard, laughing a little too loud, scanning the room to see who was noticing her. I watched her for about 30 seconds. She'd lost weight. The outfit looked cheaper than her usual style. The agency job must not have been paying what her freelance work used to. She hadn't noticed me yet. I debated whether to leave, but Cody had already turned to see what caught my attention. When he spotted her, his face split into this huge grin. "Don't you dare leave," he said, keeping his voice low. "This is perfect. The universe is handing you a gift wrapped in a bow. Accept it gracefully." I told him I didn't need any kind of drama. He said it wasn't about drama. She needed to see me happy, moved on. That would do more than any words ever could. So, I stayed, kept talking, kept eating my food. About 20 minutes later, she noticed. That fake happy look on her face flickered for a second before she put it back on. She touched up her lipstick using her phone camera, then walked toward our table. Cody leaned back in his chair. Hey boy, don't give her anything, he said quietly. She stopped at our table. Nate, I didn't know you were back in town. Just in for work, leaving tomorrow. I didn't stand up, didn't offer her a seat. She stood there for a moment, clearly expecting more. When I didn't offer anything, she pressed on. How are you doing? Is Austin treating you well? A pause. Are you seeing anyone? Austin's good, job's great, and yeah, I'm seeing someone. Going really well. The look on her face was priceless. That moment when she realized the backup plan she'd been counting on wasn't there anymore. Are you happy? She asked. Actually happy? Yep, I am. I've been thinking about everything, Nate. I know now that what I asked for was wrong. I wish I could take it back. I nodded. I appreciate you saying that. She waited, expecting more. I hope you find what you're looking for, Katya. Then I turned back to Cody and picked up my fork. She stood there for a few seconds, not knowing what to do. I didn't look up. She walked away without another word. Cody waited until she was back at her table before he spoke. Dang. Did you see her face? I shrugged. Yeah, whatever. He raised his glass. Here's to growing a pair, at exactly the right time. He grinned. I'm telling this story at every barbecue for the rest of my life. Knock yourself out. We finished our meal. I caught a flight home to Austin the next day. Rebecca picked me up from the airport. She hugged me and asked about my trip. We grabbed dinner at our usual spot, and honestly, I've never been happier. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you really like our videos, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Have a great day.